Hello everyone, welcome to the Lyman Spitzer Jr. Planetarium's online version, the Planetarium shows. And this week, starting on June 15th, we're going to take a look at the skies as we approach the summer solstice, which will take place on Saturday on the 20th. During the course of the week, one of the things that will appear, the moon will be out in the early morning skies. We're going to feature that. We're also going to take a look at the stars that come up during the summer sky. So we're going to kind of get a preview of the summer skies that way. So to get things going, we're going to bring you a view of the sky here. So we just change our viewpoint so we can see the nighttime sky. There we go. And so there we can see we're set just about at sunset. So one of the things that'll draw your attention to is that the sun is not setting in the west. So let's just kind of shift our sky view here just a little bit here. And you can see there is west. I'm circling that with my arrow. And here, northwest. So the sun is setting well north of west in the evening skies. It's also setting, of course, quite late at around 8:30. It'll get out to about 8:33 or 34 by the end of the week. Some of our longest days of the year. Although, just because of how the Earth's orbit works, the Earth is actually a little bit farther from the sun this time of year, which means it's moving a little slower, and this actually shifts the sunrise and sunset times very slightly, but it means that the latest sunsets actually don't take place until after the solstice, so really toward the end of the month of June. Nevertheless, we've got long days, which means short nights, so not as many stars to take a look at, but at the same time, there are plenty of great summer stars to view. So let's just shift our view out a little bit. We'll let the sun set, and we'll head into the evening skies. As we do so, and the sky is gradually fading, it takes about an hour and a half for the sun to finally fade out of the sky, so to say. The twilight will linger as a result into about 10 or 10:15 before the stars really appear in a dark sky. So as we're getting into the evening skies here, and I bring our view a little bit out, you can see some of the first stars beginning to appear. And one of the brighter stars that's going to show up is the star Regulus, part of Leo, the lion. So let's just kind of take a pause here. We're about an hour after sunset, and you can see just now the outlines of some of the brighter constellations appearing. One of the things you can note just above the west-northwest horizon, very close to where the sun was setting, two stars close together, fairly bright, the twins of Gemini. In this view, it gives them sort of a view that speaks to another name that I've heard of them called before. In Japan, they are sometimes known as cat's eyes, and you can see they kind of look like cat's eyes glowing in the dark and appearing above the horizon. At the same time, we have the big cat, and that, of course, is Leo the lion, positioned a little bit higher in the west. Let's just shift our view a little bit and bring Leo into view, and let's also let the stars slip a little bit more down toward the horizon, and this will give us a better view of Leo with the darker skies. Leo the lion, of course, one of the horoscope or zodiac constellations, with the bright star Regulus on his shoulder. From there, you can maybe imagine his neck coming up this way, and the stars curve around somewhat in a backwards question mark pattern. This would be the mane on the back of his neck. Going up to the top of his head, his ear, his eye, and his nose sticking out here. At the bottom, going back to Regulus again, and then extending out this way down toward the horizon, maybe imagine a front leg coming out this way, and then his belly right in here. So he's laying down on the ground. One figure you might imagine, he looks somewhat like the Sphinx of the ancient Egypt, or he also looks like the lions that guard the entrance outside the museum. So he would be laying down here, so his belly would be here, his back up above that, and then this triangle of stars forming his hindquarters, just kind of round that out to make his hindquarters right there. So that is Leo the lion, just to kind of connect the dots, so to say, and of course you'll see the other constellations here as well, but you can see the star patterns that we talked about with Leo the lion. From there, we're going to expand our view back a little bit, and as I mentioned, at this time of year, we get to see, I guess you would call it a preview of coming attractions. Just coming up in the eastern skies are the stars that are part of the summer sky. Now, one highlight is actually a little bit more toward the south, and so we're going to bring that to your attention. Very high in the southern skies, a brilliant star named Arcturus. It's more than 2/3 of the way up in the evening sky at around 10 or 9:30 or so, just as it's getting dark. The star Arcturus is bright for two reasons. One, it's relatively close by. It's only about 36 light years from the Earth. Relatively speaking, one of the closer stars to the Earth. In addition, this star is swelling up like a balloon. It is what we call a red giant star. Red giant stars are basically the last stages of a star in which it has used up most of its available hydrogen in its core. As that happens, without any hydrogen available, the amount of nuclear reactions in the core diminishes. This causes the star to cool off a bit. It also has lost some material, physically changing it from material into light, and with a little bit less gravity, it starts to expand. When it does so, though, additional reactions start taking place with hydrogen starting to react farther away from the core. Eventually, the hydrogen that's converting into helium, the helium then ignites, and we get the star doing two things. It expands, and when it expands, it cools off and turns red. And so that is the red giant star. And so Arcturus is currently expanding to somewhere around 25 times the size of our sun. That gives it a large surface area and also makes it very bright. It turns out Arcturus is the brightest star in the sky in the summer, and the second brightest star we can see overall, with the brightest being Sirius, the dog star, seen generally in the winter. Looking more toward the east now, we begin to get a preview of those coming attractions, as I mentioned. And one of the chief things among them, three stars, bright, and at this point just coming up into the eastern skies. Let's take a bit of a closer look here, and that'll help us do two things. It will actually identify those three stars, with Vega the highest of the trio. Second brightest and lowest is Altair, and then the third, more to the left, more toward the northeast, a star named Deneb, which is Arabic for tail. The three stars combined make a large triangle, easily seen in the summer, known very logically as the Summer Triangle. Now, this Summer Triangle actually isn't a constellation. It's certainly a recognizable pattern of stars, but in this particular case, each star is part of its own constellation. So if we just bring our view out just a little bit here, we can talk about those three constellations, and we'll start with Vega. Vega actually appears a bit like either a bird or a butterfly. So let's help you kind of see that or imagine that. The star Vega is the head of this eagle or butterfly with its body here. Now, if you want to make it into a butterfly, or perhaps a moth, you can use a relatively small pattern, extending out this way for part of the wing and out this way for the second lobe of the wing on the left side, and do the same thing on the right side. You can see a large lobe and then a small lobe of a wing over here. But in ancient times, Vega's name actually comes from the idea that this is an eagle. Vega comes from the Arabic elwika, which meant the falling or swooping eagle. At this point, it actually appears to be soaring, though, climbing higher into the skies this time of year. Again, this would be the head of the eagle with its body, and then great wings come out to here, and then out to here to the right. Those form the wings of the eagle, and then down below that you can see two pairs of stars here and here. Those are the tail feathers of the eagle. It's interesting that this is called the falling or swooping eagle because Altair, down below, another of the Summer Triangle stars, means the soaring eagle, and he does indeed seem to be climbing up into the sky. Drawing him as an eagle gets to be, well, just a bit of a challenge. This would be his head. The tip of his beak would be here, the top of his head, and then coming down this way would be his neck. His wings extend out from there. We can help you see those a little bit with some star lines or constellation lines, which we'll show you in a minute. But I want to finish the trio with Deneb, I mentioned earlier. Deneb in Arabic means the tail. It is actually the shorter name. It's Deneb el-Nasir, which means the tail of the chicken. Now, I'm not really sure how they see a chicken out of this. In modern times, and for a long time, this has been known as the swan in the sky. If Deneb means tail, these would be the tail feathers of this great bird, and as patterns go, it's actually a much easier pattern to see than either of the two eagles that I mentioned before. If these would be the tail feathers, come over to the right and you'll see a line of 3 stars somewhat vertical. The middle star is the body of this swan, with the wing extending out on either side, and we'll add just a few more faint stars so that the wing actually extends out this way. There's one wing of the bird here, the other wing extending down this way. Now, if this is the body, the wings and the tail back this way, then farther to the right, we find the neck and head of the great swan, his long, skinny neck going past this star, and to the star here at its head. Now we can draw those constellation lines for you, and now you can see just what I was describing. There's the head of the swan, long neck, there's his body right there, a wing extending up this way and down this way, and Deneb for the tail feathers. Vega, you don't really see much of a pattern in terms of that forming any either butterfly or eagle. You just have to use your imagination with that. And then finally, down here we have Altair. As I mentioned, that's the eye of the soaring or climbing eagle up down here, and his neck comes back this way. There are his wings and his body out like so. So there's the summer triangle. Now the summer triangle is just coming up into the eastern skies right now. During the course of the summer, you will see it much better as it climbs overhead. It will be overhead late tonight, so you do have that opportunity if you're out very late at night, but it will be out in the evening skies high above, starting in July and continuing right through the end of the year. Using this as kind of a centerpiece of looking for some of the stars that you'll see in the summer skies, we're going to swing back toward the south, because coming up in the south this time of year, a bright red star, it tends to be fairly noticeable and pronounced. You can see it named here Antares. We'll let the constellation lines fade out here for just a moment so we can talk about Antares, the heart of Scorpio the Scorpion. As pictures go in the sky, it's actually one of the better images. It's not quite all the way up just yet. It really reaches a better view as we get into the months of July and August. It's also out relatively briefly. We'll discuss that in just a moment. For right now, if this is the heart of the scorpion, and kind of a classic idea with a red star being its heart, if you look to its upper right, you will come up to a trio of stars. This forms its head and shoulders. This would be the head of the scorpion, a shoulder on both the left and right, and the shoulder in this particular case connecting to a pattern of stars that forms the claws of the scorpion. One claw extends up this way. The other claw, starting at the other shoulder down lower, extends out this way. So those are the claws of the scorpion. They are not featured on this particular version of the constellation lines, but I think you can use some imagination and find it. Now from there, if this would be the head of the scorpion and Antares the heart, it comes down and you can see it disappears below the horizon. If you do want to see the scorpion, you simply have to wait a little bit later at night, but not too late. It'll be completely above the horizon by the time we get to midnight, and we will feature that in just a moment. Meanwhile, since we are talking about stars that we can see during the summer months, we're going to let the time go a little bit later here, which means the scorpion will be starting to rise, but I want to stop because now that the sky is completely dark, time is about 40 minutes past 10 o'clock. I want to swing back over into the east where we can see the summer triangle, but I think you can notice another feature in the sky. It's pretty subtle, it's pretty faint. You need to adjust your screen just to be able to see it, but outside, as long as you have dark skies and we don't have the moon in the sky this week, you will be able to see the faint gossamery light of the Milky Way just coming up into the eastern skies. The Milky Way is actually seen most of the year, but during the months of May and June, it tends to be very low near the horizon during the evenings, so the least favorable time to be able to view it. But you can see it actually runs right through the triangle, the summer triangle. There's Vega, Deneb, and Altair. There's the summer triangle, and you can see that faint light running right through the summer triangle. Well, let's extend that a little bit to the right, because as you'll see, that drops down and is very close to the Scorpion. Here's Antares, the red star, which is the heart of the Scorpion. Let's bring the constellation lines back into view to help you see again the summer triangle located here and the Scorpion. And you can just about see the rest of the Scorpion. You can see a little hint of its tail. Why not bring that all the way up into the skies here? And there you can see it will swing our view over to the south, so you can see all of the Scorpion. So there's the heart of the Scorpion. These would be the stars forming the head and the shoulders on either side, the claws extending out from the shoulders. But notice that the body of the Scorpion curls into a tail. There's actually a pair of bright stars on the end of its tail known as the stinger. And so you can see the tail and the stinger of the Scorpion. One other curious thing about the shape of this: if you use a bit of imagination, you'll notice it is shaped like the letter S. Let's just kind of forget these stars up here for a moment and allow that to curve down this way. In fact, if we turn the constellation lines off, perhaps you can see that a little bit easier. And we'll also zoom in on the Scorpion so you can see that as well. So we'll get all of the Scorpion into view with this S-shaped pattern. I like this S. It's actually a very handy letter to sort of imagine with the Scorpion. It turns out it tells you all you need to know about the Scorpion. 1, you can see the Scorpion in the south. And 2, you only see the Scorpion in the south in the spring, the summer, and into September. So it tells you when to look, and it tells you where to look. And of course, it's got an S shape, so we can call that the Scorpion as well. So there's the Scorpion coming up, and time-wise, we're now looking at about 11:30 at night when all of the Scorpion is above the horizon, but only above a low and level horizon to the south. It never climbs very high into our skies here. Just to the left of the Scorpion, another feature in the summer skies, and one that is connected to the Milky Way. You can see the Milky Way running right in here. A pattern of stars known as the Teapot. Now, this teapot has a triangle lid located here. Beneath the teapot, of course, the lid is the teapot itself with this box of stars. On the left, a handle right over here, and to the right, a triangle forming its spout. We'll bring the constellation lines on. You can see this triangle, or the entire teapot. Again, the triangle for the lid, there's the teapot, the handle, and the spout. It is part of a constellation known as Sagittarius, which is a centaur with a bow and arrow, often referred to as the Archer. It is low in the south, very similar to the Scorpion, and coming up just a little bit later, and therefore out just a little bit later as well. But the pair of them really are featured in the July and August skies in the south. I did mention that it's only out briefly, the Scorpion that is, and that would be true of the teapot as well. One of the reasons is its location in our sky. Because of our location in the northern part of the globe, those stars are positioned where you would see the sun in the winter. Now, if you think about the path of the sun in the winter, that's when the sun is at its lowest in the sky. And so if we bring our view out just a little bit so that we can look directly in the south, but we can include southeast and southwest, the path of the summer sun starts in the east-southeast. It does not climb very high up into the south, and then it sets relatively quickly in the west and southwest. That low path of the sun in the summer is also a very short one. And so that is the path, or the winter rather, and so that is the path in the summer for the stars of the Scorpion, as well as Sagittarius, the teapot. So that's why it is only out a brief period of time. It mimics the path of the sun in the winter months. On the same path, 2 more objects have risen into the southeast. They're just starting to rise now before midnight. The planets of Jupiter and Saturn. We talked a little bit about them just a couple of weeks ago. You can go to our YouTube channel and see that again if you'd like, and we'll be talking about them throughout the summer. They're very prominent in the sky. Jupiter will be the brightest object in our summer skies, and Saturn, not quite as bright as Jupiter, but still wonderfully bright. So the pair of them will be out throughout the summer and well into the fall as well. So we have the kind of a preview of summer in that regard, with the planets that will be out in view throughout the summer and the fall. Let's swing around just briefly into the northern skies to kind of complete our look here. Again, being 11:30 at night, the summer triangle is now much higher up in the east, but if we swing around into the north, something else that happens during the summer, the stars of the Big Dipper attached to the Great Bear. You can see the Big Dipper pattern right here, and then if you extend this out, this is the body of the bear with its head down this way, a leg out here, another leg here, and the tail extending up. These stars, which are very high in the northwestern sky, tend to sink lower into the sky during the course of the summer. So you can see them starting fairly high in the northwest, the early part of summer. By later in the summer, you will drop lower toward the northwestern and then northern horizon as we get toward fall. One of the objects that doesn't change in the sky is this star, exactly in the north, and you can find it by using the stars of the Big Dipper. These two stars, sometimes called the pointer stars. If you extend the line that goes between these two stars and keep going, you can find this star, the North Star. Now we can tell you it's the North Star. In fact, if we zoom in enough, you can see it labeled Polaris. The star Polaris, or the North Star, is actually right above the Earth's North Pole. So as the Earth spins during the night, of course during the day as well, but as it spins, the North Pole doesn't go anywhere, so the star above it doesn't move. Now, again, I can tell you that, but let's actually speed up the sky's motion a little bit, and you can see it happen. There, the North Star is staying in place, and you can see how the stars of the Big Dipper are lowering into the northwestern sky and eventually toward north. Now, it's getting fairly late at night. It's 2 o'clock, almost 3 o'clock in the morning, so let's pause here. It's just about 3:30 in the morning. Now, obviously, that seems like the middle of the night, but this time of year, 3:30 in the morning, is just before the next glow of light returns to the sky. We will see that in just a moment. Early in the morning, though, if you happen to be up between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, not only can you see the planets Jupiter and Saturn toward the south, but climbing into the southeast, another bright object, another planet, the planet Mars, is climbing up. Now, Mars will get brighter right on through the summer, reaching its maximum this September and October, a brilliant object, just as bright as Jupiter. So a terrific view coming up for Mars just a little bit later in terms of time. So if we go a little bit later, you can see, again, I said that it was 3:30 in the morning. As we get closer to 4 o'clock, the glow of light in the northeast begins to expand. We'll let the constellation lines fade out. And now you're going to watch as the stars themselves begin to fade out. Before they do, I just want to stop momentarily to point out a crescent moon low in the east. So one last kind of special view here. We're going to let the moon show up, but we're also going to go a little bit later into the week. The crescent moon is eventually going to meet up with the returning planet Venus. Venus, which was in the skies in the evening during April and May, wonderfully bright, has been passing between the Earth and the Sun, is now emerging on the other side. And late in the week, on Friday morning, the moon will be very close to Venus, but they will also, the pair of them, be very close to the horizon. Now, this particular view of the horizon is a building over here in the northeast, so we may have to adjust our view so that we can see this. But this is the view on Wednesday morning, on the 17th. So let's go to Thursday morning and then Friday morning. Well, you can see the moon is still below the horizon, so let's go very close to the horizon. And then let's shift the time so we can bring the moon into the skies. That pattern of stars, by the way, is the Seven Sisters climbing up but also fading out with the glowing twilight brightening as we get closer to sunrise. Very close to sunrise, there you can see the moon. And hiding behind it, or appearing to hide behind it, is the planet Venus. Now, that's actually not the case. We make adjustments in the sky to show you the moon 4 times larger than its actual size. It actually helps with relative sizing in the sky. But we can change that. And this is, of course, this is a program you can download yourself, the Stellarium program that we're using. And so you can see directions on the museum's website to do so. But for right now, I changed the scale of the moon. And if we go back over, notice that the moon is now no longer covering Venus, but it is very close to Venus in the early morning skies. The best time for viewing this would be around 4:45 to 5 o'clock, but very close to the horizon. 4:45 kind of being the ideal time. So you can see the moon and Venus. A pair of binoculars will help with that view. Well, it seems only fitting to finish up this, allowing the sun to rise back into the skies here. That'll cause the planet Venus to fade out, and you can see the moon is also now becoming just a little point of reference in the skies. The moon will eventually be a crescent moon in the skies the following week in the evening. So that's our program for again today, but also for the week starting on June 15th. We've got the summer solstice coming up on the 20th, so enjoy the last few days of spring and look forward to the summer skies.